Hello, and welcome to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. Today we are going to be doing a spoiler-free review of Thunderhead, the second book in Arc of Scythe by Neal Shusterman, narrated by Greg Tremblay. And the way we do our spoiler freeze, it's with the understanding that you have read the first book, so minor spoilers there. We are counting this towards our 52 book challenge. If that sounds awesome, please like and subscribe. You can wait till the end, that's okay too. As far as our age rating goes for this, I would put it at a E to E10. It is under the young adult genre.
I think E10 is fair. I probably wouldn't put it at an E rating simply because of the overall concept and it really doesn't get super graphic, but it does talk about some more mature themes, right? Death, bit of romance. I say E10's fair.
Alrighty. Audible length comes in at 13 hours, 2 minutes. Book format is 513 pages.
So before we get into the overall rating, want to give a little bit of a synopsis of the book. This is the second one. The first one was Scythe, which is pretty much one major faction in this dystopian fiction. The Scythedom is responsible for helping manage the growing population through gleaning and making people permadead instead of just deadish. And then the second book is the Thunderhead, right? Which is the cloud slash AI that has grown into its own consciousness. And it essentially is the guardian for humanity, responsible for taking care of the earth. I really enjoy in this book the fact that it will break down some of the big challenges that the Thunderhead had to deal with and the algorithms that kind of run to help solve all these problems. Global warming, the pollution, just all this stuff, and how the Thunderhead has been able to combat it and essentially save humanity from itself. And like I was saying earlier, the first book seems to really focus on the Scythe Dome. We get at the beginning of each chapter a Scythe journal entry, which is part of their commandments. And then in this book, correct me if you felt differently, Pete, I felt it really focused on the Thunderhead and its role in this society.
Yeah. So, as far as the beginning chapter excerpt, it was from the Thunderhead's perspective. So, that was refreshing. And the way the book plays out, it wasn't so much like from the Thunderhead's point of view. It was very much how the Thunderhead interacted in the world. So you might see it from the Scythe's view, and then the correlation or relation between the Scythe and the Thunderhead, or the common Muggles, if you will, and the Thunderhead.
Yeah. So the second book takes place a little bit after the first one. We get a bit of a time hop. Again, minor spoilers for book one, but the apprentices, how now, or Citra is now a junior Scythe under Scythe Curry going into the second book. And then Rowan, we get to follow his story. And again, doing our best to eliminate any spoilers for the second book. But if you read any short excerpts on the back of the cover, it talks about how Rowan has now gone rogue and has taken it upon himself to put the Scythedom through a trial by fire.
Yeah, so it's not a huge leap from the ending of the first book. It kind of sets it up.
So he's now kind of taking revenge and trying to root out the corruption there. And that's where we pick up in the second book. And it's a great addition to the series, but overall, I would give it a rating of a 4.0. Um, how would you rate it, Peter?
For me, it's a little bit higher. I would say 4.5. It is missing a lot of, I guess, epic fantasy elements, but it's not an epic fantasy. So, with how long the book was, with the elements introduced, and the way it continues the story, um, the way it kind of leads you to think more and wonder about the possibilities and what could be. I'd put it at a 4.5 overall.
You brought up a couple good points there, and it's something we've talked about on our channel before, is really adjusting the lens and the perspective that we read some of these books, and how we view them. And it is a young adult. It is a shorter book for us, but it's very enjoyable. And one of the main reasons I do enjoy this book so much is because it does make you think, and it does question kind of the morality of some of these bigger issues, and in its own way, as you're looking at the perspectives of the old guard and the new Scythe order, it's very easy to see the good and the bad of both arguments, right?
Yeah. One thing Brandon Sanderson does well is he kind of paints a picture and you get a direct impression of this is good, this is bad. Throughout the Scythe series, you kind of get an underlying, like, okay, this guy is the bad guy, but it displays it in such a way that it's not 100%. It's not telling you, hey, this is how you have to feel just to flip it later. It shows it in several different lights along the way, and kind of it really engages the reader to make their own opinions and kind of justify their reason behind it.
Yes, yes. And it leaves a lot of room for debate too. And if you spend any time on the Scythe book forums or Reddits, it's not cut and dry. Some people claim themselves the old guard, other claim themselves the new order for their own reasons. Um, but yeah, it's a good book. I put it at a 4. Pete put it at a 4.5. How do you feel about it in regards to world building?
So, in regards to world building, it was kind of backwards for me because typically the first book in any series is really the world builder, and it did a lot of, I guess, utopian building. But for the second book, it did a lot more of, like, I guess, physical world building. And that's only due to the nature of the books. First book follows the Scythes, and that's what you see. Second book follows the Thunderhead, and since the AI is over the whole world, you get to see a lot more unique elements of, I guess, geographically, a lot more of the world. So I would put it at a 4 out of 5 for world building.
I agree with you. 4 out of 5 for world building. Um, it it was one of its strengths for this book, and I really enjoyed getting the broader view of the world and the Thunderhead. You got to see a bit of its logic behind why it did things where, which I found very enjoyable and give you a sense of just the larger picture of humanity, and not just in mid America where we spend most of our time with Citra and Curry and Rowan.
Yep, which brings us to character development.
So I would probably put character development around a 4. Um, the characters continue to progress and grow, which was good for me. One of the things that can cause me to lose my interest real quick is to not see how the characters got to where they are. And I felt in this book it did a good job kind of just showing the environment and the influences that have kind of forged them into who they are, and really enjoy the characters, both new and old, that we follow in this book, which I think Neal Shusterman did well. Not only do we get to follow some of the old characters from book one, but we get introduced to some new characters that gives us unique perspective into the story. And I found them interesting. I found them engaging. They weren't simply just fluff pieces that sometimes authors like to throw in there. How about you, Pete? How'd you feel about character development?
I probably rated it a little too high, but I put character development at a 5. And as I've spoken prior, um, when you put a character in a certain situation, you really see their moral compass. And it does a lot of that fairly well. We already have a bias or an understanding from the first book of how the character will interact. But why I put it higher is because it adds in new characters and it really adds a lot of elements to the world where, due to them being a everyday citizen, and then shifts in their day-to-day life, and from a new character element to everything they have to go through, it really did well developing the character and progressing the world. And then we also get a very unique twist that is something they kind of only play with, as far as I know, in this space, that added more, was a different direction that I normally don't think of character development. I normally put it as a moral compass, but there was a very specific added element that I enjoyed. So I put it at a 5.
It's really hard to talk in detail about these books without spoiling it. So hopefully everyone appreciates our attempt here. If you feel we go too far on the spoilers in a spoiler-free review, please let us know. If you feel we could do a bit more, again, your constructive criticism and feedback is always greatly appreciated.
Yeah, we're very much still developing and fine tuning our process. We've chopped out Goodreads because it is literally what you would find anywhere. Read the back of the cover kind of deal. I feel I enjoy our personal synopsis a little more, but it is very difficult not to spoil. Which brings us to cliffhangers. I put it at a 5, and that is just because it was very much a Dragon Ball Z episode, if you will, where Goku just got done powering up, or he just got his spirit bomb all charged, and tune in next week. Um, but besides the ending, of which is the biggest cliffhanger that could be, it switches, because you're viewing it from the Thunderhead's perspective on a lot of thing. It switches around, which makes it stop certain story arcs to progress others. And due to that, it's I wouldn't really put it in foreshadowing, because it's just kind of, scene to scene. It's like cut from here, okay, now we're over here, cut from here, now we're over here. So it wraps up some of the elements, so it's not really a cliffhanger, but it's not really foreshadowing either. So I'd say, um, I own the next book and will be reading it here shortly.
That's exactly the point I was about to make. This book series and this book right here is the reason why I used to have a hard, fast rule not to continue series or start series until they were almost complete or complete. Because if I was reading this and then I had to wait 2 to 3 years to get the next book, I would be thoroughly annoyed. Um, you and I even talked beforehand off air, like it'll be a while before we get ready to do the third book, The Toll, and you're just like, I'm sorry, I'm ready to go ahead and do book three because wow, what a freaking cliffhanger. So important to note, if you've gotten the first one out of the way, you're getting ready to pick up the second one, you might as well get ready to read the third one because yeah, I want to know what happens next. I would put it with you at a 5 star.
All right, and brings us to our final thoughts. Are we doing a Geek Out stream? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes, looking forward to it this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, getting into the nitty gritty of this book. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of talk about, a lot of details I want to explore and go down the rabbit hole on. And yeah, looking forward to it.